Welcome to The Young and the Restless. I'm Olivia.
I'm Victor.
And I'm Zach. And this is the podcast where 7, 8, 9, and now 9 doesn't exist anymore. Good luck without 9.
Now I lay me down to sleep. I dreamt I had a soul to keep. And if I die before I wake, will that dream just go on for its own sake?
How do you think you searched for that on Indeed?
I think it was a Craigslist thing.
Oh shit, I haven't looked at Craigslist in a long time. I thought that was... I guess I don't know what I thought that was for anymore.
Yeah.
There's weirder stuff on there.
Yeah.
You'll get like a guy that needs you to do a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, last time I looked at jobs on Craigslist, I remember seeing a lot of dudes that need a cleaning lady to live with them.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
be
there's
attractive.
a lot of that. Yeah,
Yeah, there's a
you'll
lot.
also see like in housing, it'll be like free housing, must be young, hot. It's very gross.
For a while there, Craigslist was like, well, it was good for a lot of things. Like I did find apartments and jobs
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, and then that sort of. I feel like the last thing to go away was bands. There was like the musician community was like the last holdout. Like it was the last thing that I used Craigslist for was finding other musicians. And last time I checked that, I didn't see. I don't know where musicians are congregating online now.
Musiciansmeet.com.
No, it doesn't. You think so? I didn't have
I
very
don't know.
much of that.
ChristianMingle.com.
Oh wait, you made that up.
Musiciansmingle.com.
Musician farmers only.
We were talking recently about like visual imagination versus like auditory imagination and like your mind's eye and like how strong that is. And I was thinking about how it might be related to one's tendency to dream vividly or not.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
I have like a little exercise that we could run through if you want to do it. It's kind of might be kind of fun for you and the listeners, you guys.
Yeah, because I think I have a pretty strong. I found out recently that a buddy of mine has zero mind's eye. Like
Yeah.
he can't.
Right.
But
Sounds like
he
it's just
literally.
a thing.
I think it's
Yeah.
I think it's just a thing that you like. Some people I know think in like mostly words, and I definitely have like an internal monologue, but my mind is very, very visual.
Yeah, me too. I have a friend that it's really easy to make her laugh, and I just thought she was an easy laugh for years, and then I found out that she has a super vivid visual imagination. So if you say something stupid, she like can picture it,
Yeah.
and it is apparently also a very funny mind's eye. But yeah, what's this?
Okay. Yeah. No.
Exercise.
So I've got like a little exercise. So listeners, you guys can play along with this if you'd like. So if you're comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes. And
Not if
I
you're
want you, yeah, if you're driving, please pull over or do this later. Okay, so close your eyes and picture a ball on a table. And then picture a person coming up to the table and pushing the ball and the ball rolling off the table. Okay. You can open your eyes. Now I'm going to ask you a series of questions. And if you can, just answer right off the bat. If there's no answer, don't answer.
Victor and I
Okay.
are both doing this.
I think why don't you do it and I'll listen quietly.
Okay, you can do it in your head.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
What color was the ball?
It was a rubber band ball, so
Okay.
beige.
All right. What shape was the table?
It was just like a simple, like IKEA sort of pine, four-legged square. It was square.
Was the person a man or a woman?
The person was Victor. I think just because I'm looking at him, but you were wearing a flannel for some reason. I think 'cause
Okay.
my eyes were
Checks
closed. My eyes were closed, and I couldn't remember what you were wearing.
That was my next question, was what did they look like? So Victor in a flannel. Okay.
Red flannel. But I don't know. Also, because I knew what this game was about, I don't know if I was trying to like be more vivid or not. You know mean?
Yeah, maybe not though, because but that's the thing, is you weren't deciding to make it a rubber band ball. You saw a rubber band ball, correct?
Yeah.
Because it's not a matter of how your choices as much as what you actually were able to see in your head.
I will say I got a lot less detail in my mind's eye.
Yeah, what were your answers?
So when you asked the color question, I think I filled in the color as you were asking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think same with gender. I think that I must have been filling in that information as the questions were coming.
Okay.
So it sounds like you two are very visual brained people. And I'm definitely primarily a verbal brained person. And then I can do picturing stuff in my brain. It's not like I can't do it, but it is shakier, less vivid,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes intentional effort to hold an image in my brain, and it's not hyper detailed or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there was no, if the questions went into where was the table, I wouldn't have an answer. It was a nebulous white space.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't picture it's not photographic, you know what I mean?
I think when I did this yesterday, because I saw this in a TikTok, I did not make this up. It was not an original. Sorry, guys. But when I did this, I pictured the table. It was in a room, but it was kind of up. There was a wall behind it. So it wasn't anything vivid, but I did put it in a space.
I was looking down at it so that I wouldn't see any walls or floor.
Oh.
And also
that's interesting.
When Victor knocked the ball off the table, he did it like a cat, like this. And also because you said table, you said picture a ball, and I just pictured a circle, and you said on a table, and that's when it became a rubber band ball. I think if you said on the ground, it could have become a soccer ball or a basketball or something.
But it's interesting that it was a rubber band ball for you. Mine was just a red ball,
felt like
kind of the size of a pool pool ball.
Oh, okay.
Billiards.
Yeah, I think my brain tries to put things in context, so it's oh, well, that's the kind of ball that would be on a table.
Yeah.
Rubber band ball.
Oh, that's interesting. But yeah, I was just thinking about how that might play into the vividness of a dream, right? If you're able, because when you're dreaming, you are using your mind's eye.
Right.
And I wonder if some people don't, because some people don't remember their dreams. I wonder if their dreams are different or their dreams are not visual,
Yeah. I want to ask my buddy who has no visual imagination
if he dreams.
Yeah, or how he dreams.
Yeah.
I'm sure he must
dream.
Curious.
Or he's blind in his dreams. It's just darkness and then words.
Yeah, because blind people still have dreams. Even if they're born blind and they don't know what anything looks like, they'll have dreams.
Are they visual?
I don't think so. I think if they were blind, became blind, they can have visual dreams. Correct me if I'm right in.
Yeah.
if you're blind, write in. What's our email?
The Jung and the Restless pod at Gmail.
I'm pretty sure people who are blind their entire lives still have dreams. It's just similar to their daily experience.
Yes. I would really like to hear from some blind dreamers. That would be very interesting.
Yeah. I know, because I met a few deaf people. I know they definitely dream, but it's just, that makes sense. It's just there's no audio. Although I wonder if...
That's kind of the same question, though. Can
you
generate something you haven't experienced? Or can you do it if you lost your hearing?
You're not actually hearing anything. It's in between your ears.
Your brain's always working with what it has available, though, right? So it's you wouldn't, your example of if you weren't always blind but became blind, you still have the experiences and memories and parts of your brain that can connect to visual processing, right? But if you don't have that, your brain doesn't have anything to work with.
I'd like to know what Hellen Keller dreamed about.
Yeah. We should ask her.
Sensations. I don't know, because I feel if you're deaf, you probably would have visual heavy dreams, right? But if you think about it, the auditory part of my imagination and my internal world, I can hear things in my head to the same extent that I can see them, you know?
Yeah, neither are as vivid as a dream.
I pulled up, I was looking for Hellen Keller dreams, and there's a quote from her autobiography where she talks about dreaming. So I want to read that to you guys really quick. So, before her teacher first came to her, Hellen Keller in her autobiography stated, "My dreams have strangely changed during the past 12 years. Before and after my teacher first came to me, they were devoid of sound, of thought or emotion of any kind, except fear, and only came in the form of sensations. I would often dream that I ran into a still, dark room, and that, while I stood there, I felt something fall heavily without any noise, causing the floor to shake up and down violently, and each time I woke up with a jump. As I learned more and more about the objects around me, this strange dream ceased to haunt me, but I was in a high state of excitement and received impressions very easily. It is not strange, then, that I dreamed at the time of a wolf, which seemed to rush towards me and put his cruel teeth deep into my body. I could not speak. The fact was, I could only spell with my fingers, and I tried to scream, but no sound escaped from my lips. It is very likely that I had heard the story of Red Riding Hood and was deeply impressed by it. This dream, however, passed away in time, and I began to dream of objects outside myself."
Do we want to interpret Hellen Keller's dream?
Sure, let's give it a go.
Try.
I had a dream about being bitten by a wolf, so there's like I know there's a long dream Bible entry about that.
Oh, I'm sure.
But I will say, so like, if we think about it, so like Hellen Keller, I'm probably fuzzy on the story, but it's like she couldn't hear or see, right?
Yes, but it sounds like she lost her vision because it sounds like she was seeing in her dreams, right? Or
oh, that is a gap in my grade school education.
Right.
I'm gonna need to look that up.
I remember feeling like other kids did a whole unit on Hellen Keller, and for some reason I was not in that class.
Although born with sight and hearing, Hellen was rendered blind and deaf by an illness at 19 months of age.
Okay.
So, yeah, might as well be her entire life.
So, there's part of the idea of dream interpretation, right? And like the whole Jungian idea is that we have like you can call it a shared consciousness, but also like a shared, like, understanding of symbolism, like that there's a subconscious connection between symbols and their meanings that is shared between people. It's not each individual person has totally personalized symbolism that's only relevant to them. We share symbolism, right? Because we exist in like a shared culture, right? So for someone like Hellen Keller, who was excluded from that cultural experience, she didn't have that experience. Similar to like how would the kid raised by wolves or whatever, right? It's like they don't have the cultural context to absorb the shared subconscious meaning of things, right? So it's interesting. It's like, would dream interpretation even apply to somebody like that didn't like grow up in like a shared cultural experience with everybody else?
I think it would be interesting to look at it. But can I say just one thing that's really interesting in this dream to me is in the first sentence that she says, "I would often dream that I ran into a still dark room." And it's like, what is darkness to someone who can't see, right? I mean, I guess is there like light sensitivity maybe? I don't know.
Maybe it was intellectually, like she knew it was dark even if she can't see it.
Yeah,
because it sounds like what she's saying is before she had an understanding of a world outside of herself, what caused her fear is when she felt like a heavy thud. She got the physical sensation of a heavy thud near her. And that was frightening to her because it meant something could hit her or affect her, and she didn't know what that was.
Or I wonder if like concepts like light and darkness, because what I'm seeing here, I'm just Googling things just so you know, Hellen Keller never remembered seeing a sliver of light. She never remembered hearing anything either. But like, I wonder if the concepts of light and dark are associated with other sensations, like maybe like warmth you know, and or the lack of warmth or something else, you know. Maybe you can kind of feel it in a different way, or maybe you can feel lightness and darkness. I don't know, like maybe your body learns to feel things in a different way.
Or even if she didn't consciously remember that experience, because she did have sight for the first year and a half of her life, she'd retained some concept of light and dark subconsciously, even if it wasn't in her conscious memory.
Yeah, that's just interesting.
It is. But so the first thing she remembers dreaming about when she began to understand more about the things outside of herself, right, was the wolf,
a
right?
wolf, yeah.
And that she thinks that's connected to the Little Red Riding Hood story.
You know, going back to your question about somebody who was like isolated from the cultural experience. I mean, she still had that you know, universal story, fairy tale.
Yeah, just well, like I imagine, like before that, there was not that she was very alone, and nobody was able to communicate, you know, a story to her, and so if that was maybe the first story she was able to retain, or one of the first ones, I'm sure that was very impactful. That is the first symbolism, right?
Right. Yeah. Because up until then, like probably her only experience of, you know, fear would be, like she said, something running into you, falling near you, tripping you, something, some new obstruction, right? And it's just the physical sensation of a change in your environment, right? And it's like her brain was trying to generate a nightmare, but it didn't have anything to work with. And then she's given the concept in this story of, this is the external thing to fear. This is the beast. This is the thing that could be thudding next to you. And so that becomes part of her dream. It's just interesting.
It's interesting. And like I wonder what a wolf looks like in her mind. You know what I mean? Because she's never seen one.
Well, let's hear the dream Bible entry for wolves.
To dream of a wolf represents an aspect of your personality that is on their own. It may reflect an area of your life where you feel alone or like you have to do something all by yourself. Negatively, a wolf represents issues that threaten you, make you feel vulnerable, or make you feel dangerously alone, fearing that a problem will not go away. So it goes on, but I think that pretty well sums up.
Yeah. I think there's also if you scroll down, I remember reading before there was something about a wolf biting you. Or I could be wrong, but.
People with serious physical injuries or medical issues that won't go away often dream of wolves attacking them.
There you go. There's that.
Boom.
Wow.
So, yeah, that one almost reads like the person who wrote the Dream Bible was working backwards from Hellen Keller's dream.
It is interesting though. Like I don't know that I really believed in dream interpretation until we started doing this. And I started reading from the Dream Bible as a joke, and I've kind of come around to feeling like there's really something there. And so it raises a lot of questions, right? Like how much does like your cultural experience affect like the relevance of these entries, right? Like this is an English website. We all have like a Western, like American English rooted like history. Does it change radically if you like go to a different part of the world with like a different cultural background and a different narrative? Does the symbolism shift significantly, or is a lot of this like truly fundamental to the human experience and it doesn't really matter where you are? Like a wolf will always mean a wolf to you on like a primal level.
Yeah, that's the word I was going to use. I bet a lot of it shifts, but certain things are like just human and like you said, primal, and there's kind of not a lot of ways to interpret a real wolf. You know what I mean? Like no matter who you are, where you're from, a wolf is a dangerous predator, you know, that tends to hunt alone. Or do they hunt in packs? You always hear the phrase lone wolf, and that entry talks about being alone, but
I think they do hunt in packs, but I imagine there's something to the lone wolf.
Yeah, I guess, but that's what that expression means, right? Is that it's like a maverick.
Yeah.
Not like other wolves because it hunts alone.
Not like other girls.
There's a lot of like wolf lore though that was just like bad science. I don't know about the lone wolf thing, but I know like the whole like alpha beta concept came from observing wolves and thinking, oh, there's this big wolf that seems to be in charge of the smaller wolves and gets like first dibs on meals. That must be the alpha and in charge. And we took that and like applied that to human interactions. And then they learned later that they were misinterpreting the relationship, and it was actually a family relationship. And it was like the father patriarch wolf or whatever was the largest wolf that seemed to be in charge. And they were like projecting this hierarchy onto like a family relationship.
Yeah. What I remember seeing was like, if I saw like an aerial photo of a pack of wolves, and they travel in like kind of like a line, and people assumed that the wolf at the front of the pack that was leading was the alpha wolf, or like the head of the pack or whatever. But that's not the case. The leader of the pack is at the back, and they I guess they put like more vulnerable wolves at the front.
Right. If something happens at the back, there's less preparedness. Maybe the wolves in front of you take a little longer to notice it, but if something comes from the front, all of you are aware,
Yeah, if you're the strongest one, you think you'd want to have everybody else in front of you so you can...
Where you can see them all.
Yeah. You're like, it's like a parent, keeping an eye on their kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is less about alpha, beta, and more about group survival.
Yeah.
And that,
basic mammal nurturing.
Yeah, that has gotten, as far as it's been applied to humans, especially on the internet, way out of control.
I mean, I'm a Sigma male, so I don't really think about this stuff a lot.
I'm a Delta. I've heard that Sigma male. I don't even know what that means.
I don't either. I've seen stuff about it. But
we went down that rabbit hole. It was so cringy. They have a theme song. Do you remember that?
Like a fight song, like a college?
I barely remember that.
The Sigma males have a theme song.
If I knew what a Sigma male was, I would make a joke about what their theme song would be. But I don't know what is it, like the Flintstones.
I think the idea was like of a Sigma male is that you know the alpha beta dichotomy, right? So the idea of the Sigma male was kind of like a lone wolf, like, oh, I exist outside of that hierarchy. I don't need to boss people around like an alpha, but I'm also not going to be submissive to the will of alphas like a beta would be. It's very, if that does something for you, good for you. No judgment. Like if that's a thing that resonates with you and it makes your life easier, cool.
I'm judging you.
So this is my friend Shelby's dream. I have it written out here, so I'll just read that. Here we go. To preface this dream, I mentioned in the end of the dream that I thought that something in the dream looks like a dress for Santa Muerte, which is the deity that I am devoted to. Santa Muerte is holy death, like a Mexican folk saint, part of some of their Catholic beliefs, but also very much a figure in brujeria, which is kind of like a Latin witchcraft. My mom lives in this weird, almost biblical times looking apartment setup where you have to climb these awful rickety hanging ladders to get there. What was weird about this was that in the dream, I could remember the ladder being stairs at one time and remembered walking up them many times with my ex-wife, Megan. They had been wooden stairs in my memory, made of the same material as the ladders, but now they were ladders. And so I asked my mom, when did you change the stairs? And she acted like I was crazy and said that she didn't. She said they had always been ladders and brushed me off. The reason I was going upstairs with my mom in her apartment in the first place was to have dinner with her and a new person in town whom my mom had invited over for dinner. My mom had told me about this woman before she arrived. And this was, again, a memory in the dream and not something that actually occurred in the dream itself. She had told me that the woman was a very young mother to one son, younger than me even, but that she dressed and presented and even physically looks much older. I found this to be mostly true when I met her. She was dressed very simply in a black kind of cloak-like dress and looked very thin and pale, almost sickly, with very light blonde hair, which aged her just by virtue of not looking healthy. Her and my mom were chatting in my mom's apartment, which was kind of open to the elements without a real door, so I could hear them from where I was, dragging behind on the ladder, afraid of falling. Across from each ladder, there was a small cutout in the outer wall of the building next to the entrance of each apartment that I presumed were like places to put decorations for whoever's apartment they were next to. I remember being super freaked out to climb past one that had 2 live crabs in it. Huge, really kind of rusty red looking crabs, because I thought they would pinch me. By the time I got up to my mom's apartment, which was dusty and basically made of dirt, and again, very Bible Times looking, I had heard most of the conversations between my mom and this newcomer about an exorcism that she had been performing on her son earlier this week, which I was uncomfortable hearing about. For dinner, my mom was serving some weird shit, but nothing really comes to mind. I just remember thinking it was all very weird. The woman, who was a guest, had brought something for all of us to eat together. It was a very large doll dress. It was dark blue and green and looked like a fucking dress for a doll. I was sitting there thinking, that looks like a Santa Muerte dress, and I bet this lady has no idea. I had picked up on the fact that she was very Christian, but of course my other thought was, how the fuck are we going to eat a dress? My mom cut through it with a large kitchen knife into 3 pieces, one for each of us. And it wasn't like cutting fabric, but more like cutting maybe baklava or something like that. So I figured it wasn't a real dress after all, just a dessert that looks like one and was super convincing. And that's where the dream ends. Also, I guess you can keep in mind that my mom is super conservative, evangelical Christian, and I'm sure that is involved somewhere in all of the religious over and undertones.
That's a dense one.
Yeah.
I wrote down some symbols that we might want to look up here.
Yeah, ladders.
Ladders and stairs. They used to be stairs, but they were now ladders.
But it's also important the mom was emphatic that they were never ladders. They were always stairs. So the dreamer remembered and asked the mom about it, and the mom said, "You're crazy."
They were never stairs.
They were never stairs.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
gotcha.
Yeah, that's definitely important. And
gaslighting.
in my conversations with Shelby, that came up about how that might a reality.
The Santa Muerte figure is really interesting, and I doubt that is in the Dream Bible, but I wonder if there's like a stand-in. I'm looking at a picture of Santa Muerte, and she's holding something that looks like kind of like the thing the Grim Reaper holds. Is that the Reaper?
Yeah. A scythe.
A scythe, right? If a Grim Reaper, I feel like we should loosely, if we're going to look at that, we should like take into consideration any like cultural contexts that are going to alter this, but it's maybe like a death deity figure that we can take some inspiration from.
Yeah.
And then I wonder if there's something about eating non-food.
Yeah, I wonder if she has seen that show about, is it cake or not? You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good show.
We watched all of it, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if that leaked into her subconscious.
I would maybe also look up dress, because knowing Dream Bible, it might just be like, if you dream of eating a dress.
Right.
If you dream of a dress that is baklava with googly eyes.
There's a lot of different colors for dresses.
She said it was...
she said blue, right?
Yeah, dark blue.
But it sounded like it looked like a dress connected to that deity, right? So that might be where the symbolism is more than just the color.
Yeah.
Yeah, she also said it looked like a dress for a doll.
All right, so we got a big old list of Dream Bible entries. Where should we start? Start at the start?
Start at the beginning, yeah.
Okay.
The stairs and ladders.
So stairs. To dream of stairs represents slow or incremental progress in a situation. It may also reflect an increase or decrease if your confidence, I think they mean of your confidence, awareness, or intelligence, making progress in some way. We've got going upstairs, going downstairs. So stairs are slow incremental progress. Let's just start there. Moving over to ladders. To dream of a ladder represents a higher degree of responsibility or positive behavior than is normal for you. going out of your way to be smarter, cleaner, nicer, or proper than you usually do. A situation that makes you have to think more maturely or on a higher level. A ladder may be a sign that you can't go about a problem with your same old ways or your same low standards you usually do. Negatively, a ladder may reflect arrogant attempts to bypass someone else's wishes by doing something too big or too different for them to stop. Only accepting newer responsibility or professional ideas once you are embarrassed or unable to control someone. Looking around for a more sophisticated, dishonest idea when your current dishonest plans aren't working.
That's all very interesting, because a little context on Shelby here. She's like 29, I think, but she also has a daughter. And I used to be roommates with Shelby, actually, and she wasn't, I don't know if custody is the right word. The daughter lived with Shelby's mom. And currently, Shelby has found herself living with the two of them and in a new, very stable job. She's doing like financially better than she's ever done, and very just more stable and responsible. So if stairs are incremental progress, they're no longer stairs. They're now that, because that first part of the ladder entry about like made it sound like it was about much quicker, like directly upward progress, right?
So dream of a higher degree of responsibility.
Yes.
Or positive behavior than is normal for you.
Exactly.
A situation that makes you have to think more maturely or on a higher level.
Yeah.
That all feels like new job territory.
Yeah. New job, moving back in with your mom and your daughter to be there to like handle responsibilities.
Or like a renewed responsibility for her daughter, right? Like before, if she wasn't living with her daughter, it may have felt more like living as like a single unattached person, and maybe progress felt more, I don't know, maybe I'm
potentially. I don't think she would disagree.
It may have, felt more like the kind of life progression that you would feel if you weren't living in service of another person. Well, if you have shifted to like being a parent being like the primary drive for what you're doing, that may be this higher degree of responsibility, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that did. Yeah, and the fact that they used to be this slower, more incremental form of progress, I think would resonate with Shelby as well. As well as her mom insisting that it was always a ladder. Because that when we talked about this, she was saying she doesn't think her mom has ever like deliberately gaslit her, but she does feel like maybe she has been, how do I put this? Like, I don't know if toxic positivity is the right term, but that's sort of like, you see it a lot in like the evangelical Christian community, where like, oh, no, everything's gonna be fine. It's all good. They don't want to talk about bad stuff. They don't want to talk about darkness. So that kind of like gaslighting, you know what I mean? Or like just pretending that bad things aren't there, I think is what Shelby's mom has mostly been guilty of in the past, more so than like real gaslighting. But that tracks with I don't know, they've always been ladders.
Something that's interesting here too. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you said Shelby recently moved into her mom's house.
Yeah, I believe so. Okay.
And in the dream, it's the entry to her mom's house, and or like I imagine ladders to the house. Is that what it sounded like?
Yeah, she described it. She used the word apartment.
Okay.
So I'm picturing lots of units.
It's kind of like the access to that place where her daughter lives. It's the access to it that has changed.
And the connection to it, right? So her connection to where her mom lives now, it has this grounded higher responsibility, and becoming accustomed to taking on more or having to be a more serious person.
Yeah, and it could be that Shelby is in the past thought that the ladders were stairs because she thought that there was like a broader gap between her and her family. And it would stand to reason that her mom would now be like, no, they've always been welcome here, even if you didn't feel it until now.
Yeah.
Would be my take on that. Also, the fact that the apartment looked very Bible times, as she put it.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, that feels like maybe she feels like she's starting over or starting a new chapter at the beginning. Starting a new book at chapter 1. Genesis.
What's the next entry you have pulled up here?
Next entry is Grim Reaper. And on that topic, so like you're saying, Zach, there's this Bible motif. And there does seem to be a theme throughout that dream, seemed to be a little bit of a tension of being in her mom's house and feeling that like her mom has a belief system that isn't her own, or that like maybe her belief system is subversive to her mom's belief in some way, or like filing away secretly like, oh, that dress looks symbolic of my faith, that but I know this is not the place to bring that up, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the Bible motif might also kind of connect to her feeling like she has come into a place where her mom's faith is kind of the dominant thing there, or like she's moving into that space. So Grim Reaper, to dream of the Grim Reaper represents closure or finishing, an aspect of your personality or a situation that forces transition. It may also reflect a situation in your life that is an omen of inevitable change, feeling that time is up and you now have to accept a change or failure. The Grim Reaper may appear in a dream to reflect the end of a situation, habit, or relationship, change or failure that must be accepted because time has run out. No more chances to change or alter a situation.
I feel like some of that might connect, right? Insofar as the mythology of the Grim Reaper has overlap with Santa Muerte. I'm not familiar enough with Santa Muerte to know where that overlap is. But
and I'm only going off of that it's, the saint of death, right? And that the actual visual imagery of Santa Muerte does have some overlap with the Grim Reaper. But actually that first line
about inevitable change,
an aspect of your personality or situation that forces transition. That she's in a big transition right now, right? Into a new job, into a new living situation where she is living with her daughter, right? That's a lot of transition. An aspect of your situation that forces transition. So I would say that is the job. The aspect of the situation would be, is that the job that, what would you say is the reason she moved in with her mother?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't think we talked explicitly about that, but I get the impression it is to be an adult, live with her daughter and be there for her. Her mom is also in a relationship with her stepdad that's a little difficult.
Yeah, it might not be the job. The job actually might be a part of the transition, but like something in Shelby's life maybe was like a catalyst for both of these big transitions, that like something maybe happened that is a transition into, or that forced her to transition into a new job and into this living situation. And I don't know, and maybe you don't know, but Shelby, let us know if that is on point or not.
I get the impression that the major overlap in the Grim Reaper entry with Santa Muerte has to do with everything that mentioned newness and change more so than the end.
Right.
Although
Yes.
I guess a new thing is always the end of an old thing. But
yeah, it's interesting how that entry throughout each of those lines is this or that, and it's like change or end, newness or failure, and it's like it's interesting that it could be one or the other of these two very different things, right? But I agree with you. It does seem like there's a more positive and forward-looking side to that seems to apply more here.
Yeah, I think that's how. I also don't know anything about Brujeria, but I think people who look to Santa Muerte, that I think they have a more positive outlook on death, or at least not as grim as we do predominantly in our culture.
Yeah, it does seem like it's connected to an interpretation of the symbolism of death as being positive, of being like transition, change, opportunity for newness, you know, the other side of creation, right?
Yeah. Which in that entry, they sounded like, when it was going this or that, it sounded like two very different things, but it kind of is like just two sides of the same door.
Mm-hmm. I did pull up the Wikipedia entry. That's the best research I'm finding so far. Yes. Yeah. So Santa Muerte, Our Lady of the Holy Death, is a personification of death. Unlike other saints who originated in Mexican folk Catholicism, Santa Muerte is not herself seen as a dead human being. She is associated with healing, protection, financial well-being, and assurance of a path to the afterlife. Although there are other death saints in Latin America, such as San La Muerte, Santa Muerte is the only female saint of death in either of the Americas. Though early figures of the saint were male, iconographically, Santa Muerte is a skeleton dressed in female clothes or a shroud, carrying both a scythe and a globe.
That's super sick. I didn't realize there was literally a gender to the deity.
Yeah. But this does seem like a positive interpretation of the concept of death, you know, like optimistic fatalism or whatever you want to call it.
Right. And I think that is correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, like Dia de los Muertos is like, it's a holiday to celebrate, you know, and the return of your people in your life who've passed, and that there's much more celebration and like acceptance of death, as far as I'm aware. So it makes sense that there's more of a positive symbology associated with it.
They get into it in LA. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
At least in my neighborhood. Oh, so I had a thought about the cake thing relating to Santa Muerte. I wonder, the cake looked like this iconography, but it was being served by this woman as a dessert, you know, as a sweet. And I'm trying to tie this into like what you were saying earlier about, you know, she's coming into her mom's home where there's a predominant ideology. To me, that sort of feels like something that's important to her is being looked at as something frivolous and also belonging to a doll, like a child's toy. There seems to be kind of like she's picking up on some kind of like patronizing of her own beliefs.
There's definitely something deeper going on with the house guest, right? Like, wasn't another aspect of that character simultaneously being very young and very old?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a stretch.
She was told in the dream that this person was her age, so like late 20s, but she looked much older.
To my mind, that the coexistence of those things feels connected to like this perspective on death, right? Or this view of death, this simultaneous oldness and newness, right? And it's like, and then for that character to present this thing that's this dress, this symbol of death, but also like this thing that's taken by her mom on its face value is like, oh, it's a cake or whatever, or it's dessert. Again, maybe I'm stretching, but I wonder if this house guest on some level maybe represented this deity, but I don't know.
It kind of seemed like it, she said that she looked. Could you read her description of this guest?
Yeah. She was dressed very simply in a black kind of cloak-like dress and looked very thin and pale, almost sickly, with very light blonde hair, which aged her just by virtue of not looking healthy.
And there's a little bit before that, right, where it was kind of her mom's introduction of her, or first impression.
She had told me that the woman is a very young mother, younger than me even, but that she dressed and presented and even physically looks much older. This was also the woman that was giving an exorcism to her son, that was giving Shelby the creeps.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that I think of is the sickly, unhealthy look. Santa Muerte, it literally has like a skeleton, a skull face.
There could also be, I don't know. Did you say Shelby?
Oh, her scythe reflects her origins as the Grim Reaper.
Oh, okay. So there's direct connection.
There's direct connection. Yeah. Okay. I feel better about that now.
But like we were talking about like a shift into maybe like a new responsibility, right? And like a new weight to the world or what have you, taking on this new job and everything. And so for this guest to both be very much like her, right? Like similar age, mother, but then also to be old and sickly looking or like, not looking well, could connect to maybe like a wariness that she feels about taking on this new role or this shift in how she's approaching her responsibilities or her life.
Yeah, and in that case, the exorcism is interesting because she said it made her feel uncomfortable to hear about it. And the fact that she was doing it on her kid. Sorry, I'm sort of building this plane as it's taking off. I feel like that could symbolize some like discomfort with the way she's handled things with her daughter in the past, or maybe the way that her mother has handled things with her. It could represent what she's departing from on this new venture, or trying to stay away from, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't remember the exorcism part of the dream very well. It was the introduction.
And it was kind of in passing, yeah. When she was climbing up the ladder to her mom's apartment, she could hear before she got there her mom and the lady talking about giving the lady's kid an exorcism.
Interesting.
Can we look at crabs?
Yeah. Because I'm wondering, all this other stuff seems so related, like age and death and cycles and different religious iconography. As I'm wondering how crabs are going to play into it.
Could you reiterate? We've just been talking about the other thing for a long time. At what point do the crabs appear, and in what context?
I guess towards the beginning when she's climbing up to the apartment.
She passes.
There's
them, right?
There's like these enclaves next to the entrance of each unit because it's like an apartment building, and in one of them there's two big ass crabs. Okay. She's afraid they're going to bite her, or not bite. You know what I mean?
To dream of a crab represents an irritable or pessimistic attitude, a crabby personality. You or someone else that is in a bad mood or talking down about everything. Feelings about yourself or someone else being a choosing to never respect anything positive or uplifting. An attitude that ruins other people's good mood. Feeling that someone is making you jealous, that you can't enjoy yourself with a positive attitude.
That one felt kind of half-assed.
I kind of feel like we would maybe need to hear from Shelby on how this relates, because this might be like playing in more into her like
it could be a total red herring. Could be maybe something that she's feeling about herself, right? On some levels, like maybe I'm being more crabby and that's on her mind, or there's some person we don't know about that's triggering that feeling.
Or it could be like that's the thing, is like the crabs might not like represent a person, but just like the crabbiness and the pessimism, and she is worried that it's gonna bite her, but she passes by it. She doesn't get pinched by the crabs, Yeah. It's something she doesn't bring in with her to the apartment.
Yeah, like a general negativity that she's seeing, like.
Mm-hmm.
So this woman, she was discussing an exorcism for her own child, the stranger.
Right.
Okay, and that made Shelby feel uncomfortable, is that this stranger was considering an exorcism of her daughter.
I think she already did it, and to her son.
Or son. Pardon me.
Son, yeah. Yeah, that's why that lady seems to be more closely tied to Shelby's mom's evangelical roots than the Santa Muerte thing, which makes the like serving of the dress feel like a dismissal of the.
I'm noticing a theme among all of these symbols, like positivity and negativity. That seems to be in every single one we've looked at so far. It's mentioned in everything down to the dress and the color of the dress.
It says here, a blue dress symbolizes you or some area of your life that is compliant or helpful in a positive way.
And I mean, that makes sense with the...
Look at that.
And then the doll entry.
That's crazy.
It was a doll dress. I haven't read this yet, but Olivia has. To dream of a doll represents a person or situation in your life that innocently molds or complies to your wishes, using your innocence to get others to do things for you. It may also reflect waking life situations where you are talking to someone that never disagrees with you. What's the connection you're seeing there?
Compliance. It just uses the word complies in both of those entries. I just thought that was an interesting word to be in both of those entries.
So like walking through the scenario of the dream again really quick, it's like this woman presents a thing that has secret meaning to our dreamer here, but she stays quiet about it, lets this be enjoyed on the level that her mom wants to engage with it.
Right.
So maybe that is that is the compliance, right? Is that even though I see this as there's meaning here for me that isn't there for you, I'm going to let you have this.
Yeah, the important thing is it's helping everybody, so we don't need to get into a tiff about the details of it.
Which could speak to, she might be coming into living with her mom with an attitude of not wanting to be confrontational, maybe about stuff that they'd previously bickered about. I'm just kind of projecting my own family experiences onto that.
Yeah, and I think she credits Santa Muerte with some of these positive changes in her life. So I think if her mom has a dismissive attitude towards it, it would make sense that Shelby wouldn't want to interact with it, because it's like, you don't need to understand. The important thing is I'm here and taking care of things.
What's our last one?
Dessert. To dream of eating dessert represents pleasant feelings about something being over. You may be treating yourself or giving yourself a reward now that a difficulty has finished. Indulging in or celebrating your success. Satisfaction with a job well done.
So it's interesting that they're eating the compliant blue dress.
Yeah, I feel like that plays into what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
With the different outlooks on a spiritual journey.
And there is there's a satisfaction with feeling like you're handling something the right way, even if it's maybe irritating to you. It's like I'm being a grown up about this, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, even if I'm irritated or whatever.
Yeah, and there's also the angle of where once she cut into it, she was like, oh, well, maybe it wasn't a dress. Maybe it is just baklava or whatever. So that could be her subconsciously telling herself that she may be misreading some things that her mom does as slights, and they're not. But I would have to ask Shelby about that.
I do feel like this house guest is like a real can of worms, though.
I feel like we could talk about this a lot.
Yeah. It feels like an interesting character in a horror movie where you're not sure what their moral alignment is in Act 1.
Right.
Well, I feel like we kind of dissected it, but we maybe it'd be cool to hear from Shelby a summary on how she feels about.
We'll do a follow-up in another episode.
Yeah, let's do that.
Thank you, Shelby.
Thank you, Shelby.
Boom.
It is a good viewpoint to see the world as a dream.
So I had this dream the other night. I went to my mom's house to borrow Sign Guy's truck. You may remember Sign Guy from a previous episode.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Sign Guy, for you listeners, this is a pseudonym for the person that my mom was dating for a long time. Currently, they're living together, but not in a relationship, and there's some tension there.
And he's the kind of guy that would bring a sign to a political rally.
Yeah.
Is where that... Just to paint a picture, that's where that pseudonym comes from.
He's the kind of guy that stands on the street corner with a political sign.
By himself.
Right.
Without a rally.
Yeah. No, literally. So anyway, I was going there to borrow his truck. And when I got there, he was really friendly and in a good mood and was happy to let me borrow his truck. And I looked in the bed of his truck, and it had this cool little landscaped tadpole pond in the bed of the truck. There were a bunch of tadpoles, and I was tadpoles, and I was excited about that. I don't know. I find tadpoles exciting. I was just kind of watching them swim around, and I was looking for ones that had like legs, and I noticed there were a few that were like fully developed frogs. And he said, "Yeah, I am moving back to the Midwest, and I'm taking them with me. I'm taking them back to the Midwest to, I don't know, I got the sense that he was going to set them free there or something." Side note, he's not from the Midwest. He's from New York. So it's kind of interesting that he said that. And then I look down and I see there are a couple of the fully developed frogs in there are doing this thing where they're like kind of doing like when you were a kid and you do a handstand in the pool and like your legs stick up out of the water and you're just kind of like they feel kind of heavy above the water. So they're kind of waving around. They were doing that. These little back frog legs were sticking up straight up out of the water and kind of like waving, and their feet were purple. And either I was told or I knew that this was a particular thing that this species of frog did. And that was the whole dream.
That was short and sweet. So there's sign guy. There's an ecosystem in the back of a truck.
Which I'm going to borrow. I do remember briefly thinking, oh, I guess I can just put the stuff I need to haul on top of this pond.
Oh, right. You're right. You're going to borrow the truck. Yeah, that's weird that it didn't seem more inconvenient to you.
I was just excited about the tadpoles.
And they're in varying stages of tadpole growth.
Yeah, I think most of them were tadpoles. A couple of them had legs, and then a couple had fully turned into frogs. The early bloomers, I guess.
Was the whole dream around the bed of the truck? Or did you... I thought you said you went inside and there was something with that's where you saw the pink or the purple feet?
No, I was kind of standing outside in the driveway, like peeking in. I think the main thing that stood out to me, aside from the tadpoles, was Sign Guy's attitude. Like the big tension in waking life here is that Sign Guy is kind of refusing to move out of this house. And objectively, anyone looking at this situation would say it makes sense for him to leave. And in this dream, he was moving and he seemed like
happy about it.
Yeah, and like the tension was resolved.
Should we start reading some dream Bible entries?
Yeah.
So, tadpoles. To dream of tadpoles represents feelings of something or someone in your life being impossibly avoidant, feeling that you can't even try to do something without it quickly resulting in disappointment. Feeling that disappointment is intuitive about never allowing to try to do something you want. Feeling that getting close to something at all makes it less likely. Dreams of tadpoles may reflect a woman's wish to get pregnant while trying to conceive, when the man partner is always impossible to spend time with.
That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So someone in your life being impossibly avoidant. The thing that stood out in this dream was that he was nice to me. And I've had other dreams and reflecting our like waking life interactions, which have been like sparse, but he usually will like not say hi to me or like avoid eye contact or like kind of just grunt and like barely acknowledge me.
Yeah.
So that feels a little bit connected there.
It feels very connected. Impossibly avoidant. That's like to a T.
Yeah. I had another, okay, this is maybe a wild side note, but I had another dream about him related to an animal, which was that I walked into my mom's house and I saw him in the room and he like didn't acknowledge me. And I said, hi, Sign Guy. And he didn't say anything. And I said it again. I said, hi, Sign Guy. And he said, hi. And then I like walked up the stairs and I looked over the railing that looks down to where I originally saw him. And there was a huge cockroach just sitting above the front door that I just walked in. And I remember thinking, I've seen that cockroach before here, and it's gotten much bigger since I last saw it.
That one feels like a pretty easy one to interpret.
The cockroach entry is pretty spot on for what you'd think it would mean in this context. It's to dream of cockroaches represents feelings of undesirability, something you really don't want in your life. Feelings about a situation being low quality, dirty, or poor, a tarnished reputation, a continuous problem, feeling annoyed by something subpar, imperfections that embarrass you.
Yeah, and you've seen it before in this house. It's like, this persisting issue with this guy.
Yes, and it was only getting bigger. So that's definitely what that dream means. There's nothing more to that. But coming back to tadpoles, though, this dream was very different in the sense that the first thing I noticed was that he was no longer doing that thing where he's like doesn't want to say hi to me. He was like looking me in the eye and like he was like, yeah, I'm moving back to the Midwest. Like he was having a normal conversation with me.
Yeah, and even bigger than that, like doing the one thing that is, solving the one thing that is the biggest problem, which is leaving.
Right.
Also, it's the Dream Bible is so weird how it'll be like, sometimes it's just like, yeah, crabs are crabby people. But then other times it's like tadpoles are disappointment and avoidance. Like, how did that?
Yeah, That's so wild. Because that to me, like, that feels like possibility and like growth potential. Like that would be my intuitive read on what a tadpole might mean.
The pregnancy read made sense.
Right, but it's specifically like conceiving with a man who's impossible to spend time with.
Yeah, which that doesn't seem to be part of this dream.
But he's taking the tadpoles away.
Oh, that's true.
And he's releasing them into the wild.
Do you think you had this dream because you are picking up on like the possibility of this actually happening? Or is it all hopeful projection?
I hope so. That would be great.
I mean, this is the ideal resolution with Sign Guy, right? Is that he stops being quietly confrontational or passive aggressive, and he does the thing you would like him to do, which is to move and make his own life, like make a separate life.
It's interesting. Did you pull up the Midwest? Is there anything about that?
I couldn't find anything on the Midwest.
Okay. It's just interesting to me because he's not from the Midwest. And I remember thinking that in the dream. I was like, oh, okay, back to the Midwest. But I know you're not from there.
Well, what does the Midwest mean to you?
Corn.
Mm-hmm.
Corn. Snow.
Yeah, flat. But also just maybe it's like a new place, far away.
It feels like grounded to me, right? So it's like maybe like finding grounded, even footing somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So there were frogs, right?
Yes.
There were frogs in the pond?
The frogs.
Okay. I'm surprised that the tadpole entry didn't have anything about like if the tadpoles turn into frogs. There's nothing in there. But the frog entry is to dream of a frog represents situations in your life that harmlessly don't listen to you or annoy you, that they aren't what you really want to experience. Often a symbol for experiences that leave you jealous that something isn't working out, jealous of not having your choice. Disappointments or feelings about goals that have escaped your ability to achieve them. Relationships or situations that failed or don't happen as you expected them to. Jealousy that what you want to experience eludes you or is not as easy as you thought it would be. People in your life that are good listeners but don't do what it is that you really want. Some area of your life that just isn't it. Frogs in a dream may be a sign that you need to accept a non-functioning situation, relationship, hope, or promise as never doing what you would like it to do. And then there's colors of frogs.
Damn, that seems really contrary to the...
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how that applies. Does that make any sense to you?
It seems to directly apply against the whole situation of him like congenially leaving.
I would say it makes a certain amount of sense to me, given that in waking life, conscious life, I don't think either of us think it's very likely that Sign Guy is going to ever do what he's doing in this dream. And that's the desire, right? Is like sign guy's going to come to a realization of, I'm not doing anybody any good, like hanging around being upset about this relationship not working out. I'm going to move on, build a new life somewhere else, and be cool to everybody. I don't know that you see that as a real possibility. So the frog entry is saying you're accepting that this thing that's being presented in the dream is not going to happen.
That's completely correct. Like, he's dragging his feet and like is going to do that until the end. And if he does leave, it's not going to be on, a good note, unfortunately. I know that.
Do you think maybe that's why your brain included because he said he was going back to the Midwest, even though you in the dream knew that was not factual. Do you think like your subconscious started building this dream as like a fantasy of something you want to happen, and then part way through it realized that this was not real, so it gave you like this details that tells you that's not even the guy you're talking to.
That's interesting. That's the best explanation I have for that part.
I've got 2 more entries. To dream of a pickup truck represents decision making or control over a situation that involved hard work or fixing something. Feelings about your or someone else that has a job to do. Behavior that is focused on fulfilling obligations or responsibilities. A direction in life that is centered on getting the job done or working hard to restore a situation. A hard work, effort, or labor mindset needed to deal with an issue. Negatively, dreaming about a pickup truck may point to annoyance, frustration, or jealousy, with needing to fix a problem instead of enjoying yourself. Feelings about hard work being excessive, or that a problem will take a very long time to fix. Lots of work to do with nothing successful happening. Issues with relationships, work situations, or needing to pay bills. Financial instability that requires a lot of work. I feel like the truck, it representing work that needs to be done, could connect to your feeling that sign guy has a job to do here.
Yeah.
Like, his responsibility is like start being decent to everybody and also do this thing.
Lots of work to do with nothing successful happening. Issues with relationships. Yeah.
Yeah. And you came over to your mom's to borrow the truck, right?
Yes.
So it kind of seems like this dream took a course of like you're going over there to remedy your mom's situation yourself and then slowly realizing you can't.
Yeah.
And the cockroach dream from a couple months ago is like you go to your mom's place. There's this tension with sign guy. You see the cockroach, which represents your frustration with sign guy. It's that dream is kind of you living out your going over there and doing something, right? Or like your need to do that. And this dream is maybe a couple months down the road, you coming to, or you grappling with, there's not really anything for me to do here. Sign guy's the only one that can deal with the situation, and he's not going to do that.
Yeah. No, I do feel like it's going to get sorted out.
Yeah, it sounds like you're just working through the idea that the way it's going to sort itself out isn't going to be him just packing up and leaving with a smile on his face. Like you said, it will sort itself out. It just might be kind of long and arduous and not.
And also like accepting that you don't really have a role in it. You're emotionally invested in it, but there's really not
anything I can do. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I've got the color purple, which is the color of the foot sticking up out of the water.
It was like little frog feet doing like shimmery purple jazz hands out of the water.
So the color purple in a dream represents neutrality or powerlessness, something that is uncaring, unbiased, or totally powerless. Positively, purple can symbolize having no bias or situations that are open. This will usually be represented by lighter shades of purple. Negatively, the color purple reflects powerlessness. You are totally unable to respond, react, or do what you want. Impotence in some form. This will usually be represented by darker shades of purple. When you see purple in a dream, it can represent a negative situation that has been neutralized by a positive situation, or a positive situation that has been neutralized by a negative situation. The symbol for purple is metaphorically based on the mixture of blue and red, which in waking life creates purple when mixed. Since blue symbolizes positivity and red symbolizes negativity, you get neutrality with purple.
So, couple things.
That's so interesting.
It was dark purple.
Okay. I would also say, if you look at the frog entry, right, and you connect that to like an acceptance of never getting the behavior you want out of sign guy. And it was interesting that the, going back a little bit, the cockroach entry talked about tarnished reputation. I think that you didn't always have a real negative view of sign guy.
Correct.
Your view of sign guy has degraded as you've seen how he's handled the end of this relationship. He has not handled it in a mature way, and you now have slowly lost all hope that he will handle it in a mature way. And I know, like knowing you and knowing the situation, I know that you feel a certain degree of powerlessness here, where you would like to be able to help. You would like to be able to help your mom get the end result that she wants, and there's not a lot for you to do here, So if the frogs are your acceptance of you're never going to see what you want from Sign Guy, the purple of the feet of the frogs could represent you also acknowledging that there's nothing you can do to create this scenario.
Yeah. Yeah, that does make sense.
Sorry, this is kind of an aside, but I just find it really interesting how we were talking about cultural symbols earlier, and color is a big, color theory is a big one. Like if you're doing wardrobe or set deck for a movie, like every color is loaded with or imbued with meaning. And purple is usually, that entry is like completely contrary to what purple normally means, which has to do with like regalness and royalty. Which implies power, not powerlessness. So I wonder how that reverses itself in the collective psyche.
That is very interesting.
Yeah. And I have the same associations you're talking about. When I think of purple, I think of that symbolism, that like, it's associated with royalty. And so there's a connection to, money and power with purple. So it is interesting to see it representing powerlessness here, because I do feel like that's relevant.
Yes, and I don't think royalty, and I don't think that other interpretation does work with this. So
that's the waking interpretation.
Yeah.
Right. I'm fascinated by how if we all, when we're awake, we all think of purple as one way, how we can all think of it differently when we're asleep.
Yeah, it's so interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting to think that not only do we all have like a shared symbology, but that we have two. Like we have a waking and dreaming symbol, or like a conscious and subconscious symbology that we all adhere to.
Yeah.
Except Hellen Keller, maybe.
Except for Hellen Keller and the kid raised by wolves.
Well, good luck to your mom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You've been listening to The Young and the Restless.
You can follow us on Instagram at The Young and the Restless Pod, and submit your dreams for interpretation to theyoungandtherestlesspod@gmail.com.
And as we always say, the
Chickens
won't cross themselves.
Picture a tiger living on the moon, and maybe someday we could go there together. For now the clock is screaming, welcome home. Dream forever, dream forever.
Listens to you. You feel like you're yammering on day in, day out. Nobody gives a shit. Well, I do. And Zach does, and so does Victor. We want to hear everything you have to say, but only if it's something that happened in a dream.
And only if it's in the form of an Apple podcast review for The Young and the Restless.
That's us. And we want to hear what you have to say for a price. So leave your dream in an Apple podcast review, and we might just read it on the show for everyone to hear, if you want that. And if you don't, just leave a 5-star review.
5 stars only, please.